Committee meeting for Thursday, May 9th, 2024. Roll call. Ed Rankin Jr.
Here.
Tracy Hare is going to be here in a few minutes, and Mark Eastman is present. Second item on the agenda is the animal shelter.
All right, so Mr. Bishop here came up with this idea of potentially taking use of the building that Jay is in now at Public Works and then adding on to that to create an animal shelter versus the new one that we'd looked at before. I drew up this model with it was limited because it's the building, the existing building ends here, and so it's only 24 feet wide, and once you get a corridor in here so that you can get to the various rooms, it makes for, 9-foot wide rooms. So I tried to lengthen them out, so it works. It's much smaller, but it works. It's about 700 square feet smaller than the other one that we had. So that's the layout, and then and keep in mind, these are rough numbers. This is not like a promise that she will do it for this price, but they were kind enough to put numbers together for us, and I told you wrong the other day, Steve, because I was a bonehead. But the actual quote came in at 489, basically 490,000, and I believe that includes a 10% contingency. So that is where that one's at, and then the new one, whoops.
And that would include the,
It does not include sewer and water,
okay.
because we don't know what we're gonna do with that.
Okay.
So sewer, you got two options. You can either put a new septic in down behind the town garage, and they can run a line down there. It would have to be pumped probably, but not a big deal to put a pump station in. Not like a big industrial one, just like a household one. Or we had talked about possibly extending the sewer line. It ends at 333. I should have had the map up. It ends at 333, which is that kind of reddish gambrel looking building that has the 4 units in it. That's the last spot that catches sewer, and that's just a little before the town garage,
yeah.
maybe a couple hundred feet. Which I know even a couple hundred feet is pretty expensive
It was
to do that.
$250,000 to replace 150 feet of sewer line on Central Street.
So there you go. However, there's the possibility, and we'd have to get more concrete answers, but if my cause is gonna go forward with the second phase of his project, he would like to not do septic systems again. He would like to put in sewer down there and a big pump station and pump it up to the street. So then the question comes, do we want to potentially do something to get it to a point on the street where he would then tie in, and obviously he pays for all his stuff. Is it worth it to us to extend that?
What is that, another 400-600 feet, something like that?
I'd have to measure it. And it depends where he puts his road and stuff. I don't have any drawings from him yet. From my conversation with him, it sounds like he's planning on moving forward with it, but Mike's got so many irons in the fire that. So those are the two options for sewer at this facility. Water, the well is right there. We may have to put a filtration on it or something to make sure that it's clean to drink, because all the guys use it for now is like pressure washer and dump trucks and all that stuff. But there's tons of water coming out of that well, so we don't need a second well.
Did this include the sound barrier fencing?
She has sound barrier fencing in there. She has the kennels in there, the runs. She put concrete down for the runs, which I'm not sure we want that. I feel like we want them to have something soft to run around on, but concrete obviously is easier to keep clean, so I don't know. I'm not an animal shelter expert, but she put it in as concrete, so that's what's quoted. And that includes all the labor and everything. So it's about $140,000 less than going new. And the new one didn't include septic either. So if we're going down there, we'd have to put a septic in. That wasn't included in her quote. And I think either way, we'd run a water line from that well. I don't see any reason to drill.
Whether it's down over the hill or.
Yeah, I don't see any reason to drill a new well if there's plenty of water there.
Yep.
And And the guys from the Public Works could do that, bury a water line down there.
Sure. The number's still pretty,
It is, it's.
Oh, it's
still-
not.
It's still high, you did phenomenal, and
Yeah.
I feel bad to
No,
come
it's-
up with this idea that
You don't know
wasn't
until you try.
as cost savings as we had hoped for.
Yeah.
But it gives a good option, and because we know there's gonna be fundraising for this, we know this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people.
Melissa said she's willing to help with that, to lead the way on that, so.
Yeah.
I know she loves animals, so. That's what we need really, is a team to start the fundraising, cause I know people love animals and they will donate to this. But we gotta get the ball rolling. Not on construction, on the fundraising.
Right, yes.
And DC Winchester, you don't see us going backwards of getting less animals in the future.
Not unless our contracts don't get renewed with the other agencies that are currently using us.
And we're at 14,
We're at 11, including us.
11.
And the thing is, a lot of them don't have any other options, because the other places are all full. You know, everybody always, the first thing the public says to me when they bring this up, cause they know I'm kinda leading the charge, even though it has really nothing to do with me. The first thing they always say is, well, why can't we just tell all those other towns to pound sand, and then we don't have to deal with our own, and we could just send ours up to the Bangor Humane Society, and there you go, wash your hands of it. It's not that simple. The Bangor Humane Society is full, they can't take any more animals, and neither can all those other towns, so.
Didn't the Humane Society have like a 7 to 8 year log on communities wanting to get in?
Yeah, it's not a pretty situation, and
Is there,
So-
multifaceted question for Sue, DC Winchester, and Director Gagan, is there any revenue in making it potentially larger? Or, if we have 11, if we did 14 to 15, or other strategic towns, or there's no money in it at all?
Whether there's money or there's not money,
Yep.
I think that when you start going down that road, adding staffing to accommodate it,
Yep.
you can't raise enough.
Yep.
And I think that us having one size, because this would serve what we have now, but a large percentage of the animals we deal with are from here.
Yep.
There's a lot done to try and avoid anyone bringing us an animal, because they have to pay for them separately in addition to their funding stream. Something like this wouldn't be outsized for our community and its needs in the long term, even if other people went somewhere else or the county decided to do some version of something, which has happened in some locations. Because in talking about what if you were gonna fundraise for at least 50% of this, you still come in under the current $300,000 cap, but we had talked about upping it, but the how much does the town devote out of public funding? Even if you could raise all but 200 and the town contribute that's a more realistic. It's
Still-
more in the
still
line
a
of
lot
a
of money.
number that you were thinking of when we were talking about, I
Yes.
think, this,
Yes.
but it would,
We've had numbers from 650 to over $1 million with this scenario.
almost two.
Almost
The
two.
first quote, that was
Yes.
insane, and that
So-
was with his pencil very sharp.
So when we were originally looking at this, I was hoping to get out of it for 150.
Oh
So,
yeah, no, that's not gonna happen, but.
where we had the building already would be the goal. That
Yeah,
was
if
the
you could
thought.
just reuse that one building, but it's just not big enough at 32 by 24. It sounds big until you start doing the math, and it's like, well, if we, just those 5 kennels along the end, that takes up 6 by 20, 11 by 23 right there, just for 5 kennels
and if we're not substantially saving money by doing this, it kinda brings me back to down below, cause we have a limited footprint here
yeah.
to work with, and if there's no major savings, I'd rather see us try to raise more money and do it down there.
Down there, as in its existing
Where it
location.
is
No,
now?
behind the town
Behind
garage, as we
Behind the
talked
town
about at one
garage,
point.
okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cause then you could still do a dog park if,
Right,
it
yeah.
would be a lot easier down there than,
I also had a conversation with Chris Dunbar this week when I was doing an inspection of his house, and he wasn't real keen on it being there.
Yeah,
I heard the same thing from him.
Yep.
So, yeah. I
Which
don't know.
I understand. It's
Oh, for sure, it's right
30
there.
30 feet away from his house.
Yeah.
this scenario, when we first looked at it, if it was if it was the substantial savings that we had hoped for or anticipated, I could have seen pursuing it, but now that the numbers are so close, I'm not gonna say it puts us back to the drawing board, but
Yeah.
this is one option to put in a pile, and we really should look at two other, like if we have a top three, we need to pick one and run with it, kind of thing.
I'll get with Luke and look into those, modular,
Yes.
ones, and
Yep.
see what that looks like, cause they were substantially less, but they may not be suitable up here, and
no,
that's
I
what I
looked
don't
those
know.
up, and really what they are, they're kind of like those Hillview mini barn type thing. It's a structure that's built, and most of them just have a corridor down the middle and kennels on either side. There's no rooms for the staff to work with the
Okay.
animals, to groom them, to bathe them, to
Cause there were some commercial
Yeah.
ones as well.
yeah, I think that they're basically meant as an add-on. So like if you, like the Bangor Humane Society, let's say they
Sure.
had, we've got 10 more dogs, we've got to do something. You could bring one of those in, and
Okay.
there's your dog runs, but you've got that facility to do all the stuff,
Grooming and all
the
that.
isolation if they're sick, and the,
Could one of those
Yeah.
things be added on to the current building and the current building retrofit with bathrooms, et cetera, for, I'm just,
yeah. Yes, but the current building is still, you've seen it. It's pretty,
Well, the water out there is not good too, so,
yeah. The current building is just a shed. I think it could be moved, but, well, one of them has a slab, doesn't it?
I think one does, yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, it's not much out there.
I think the main shed.
But, any idea is worth exploring. I know that this may have been a waste, but I don't feel like it was a waste, because now we know. And,
That's exactly it.
um,
Deputy Chief Winchester, do you have any input? This is a department that you run. Do you have anything to add?
My honest opinion, Steve, thinking about it and having some conversations, I think we should possibly consider where it currently exists. Do we put something there? Do we leave it there? It's been there for 30 years. And I don't think an addition is going to be the solution. It's just a shed. And I don't wanna be in a position where we put time, money, and effort into something new and then have it not be sufficient for what we need. So, I know we've been dealing with this for a long time, and I'd like to come to a decision on which way we're moving, but I'm not sure what that answer is.
Okay.
Do we have room for septic and water down behind the transfer station?
I honestly don't know. I would think so. We've got quite a bit of land back there, but I don't know.
The water would be the hard part, cause it's still the old landfill.
Yeah. Fundraising
Yeah.
would be easier if we had a model to show people this is what you're going towards.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
say you need to pick one right now. I'm just saying we need to come to a
To build a
decision.
campaign around something.
It really helps to have something to show them, hey, this is what you're raising money for.
Yeah. I agree.
It's harder to just go out and say, hey, we're still figuring out what we're gonna do, but we need to raise money because we're gonna do something.
Well, what if we met with whoever this would be volunteers there to see what their capacity is for fundraising, to see if we're getting into something that's reasonable?
Yeah.
well, I've got people who email me asking about this and wanna know when the council's making some kind of a decision, so.
I mean,
Because they
wouldn't it
wanna-
make sense to sort of agree on a concept?
Sure.
And, I mean, you're not spending money by agreeing on a concept necessarily, right?
But if the
So-
concept is we're saying they're gonna raise $350,000 and they don't have that capacity, I just don't know.
But you can't build capacity without a concept.
But
So
yeah,
I think,
they can't
yeah.
build on this either. We're gonna
Right.
have to have Jack Gordon or somebody do up some drawings off that. It's required by the
Yeah.
fire marshal's office, so we have to do it.
yeah.
But I'm not gonna do that until we know what we want, so in the meantime, I can do layouts.
I wonder, like, the Humane Society and others, do you have a sense of who pitches in for their structures, and we could look into that and see if there's any funding source that they've tapped into.
There's all kinds of stuff out there. There's grants, just
Yeah.
somebody needs to know how to go after them, and Rich is
Yeah.
buried already.
I'm
So,
happy to help if
um,
we could nail one down.
Yeah, and like I said, Melissa Osborne said she's willing to help, and then I don't know, when you said those people were contacting you, is that because they want to help fundraise, or they want,
They want it to happen, and I
But do
think
they
they'd
wanna
be
help?
willing to, no one has said they wouldn't help.
Okay.
They just are
yeah,
looking for a project.
because there's lots of things I want to
Yeah.
happen, but
Melissa has a good background in fundraising, I
she
think.
does, and she loves animals, so
Yeah.
it's a passion of hers, so.
Steve, to go back to your question, just another consideration is if we continue looking at the structure of the town garage, the noise that could cause by highway coming in and out of there with their trucks, and then you think of the police cruisers and fire trucks gassing up and pulling in there in the wee hours of the night, it's gonna cause those dogs to bark, and it just causes me a little bit of concern for the people in that direct area. I know you and I discussed and thought about it, it sounded like something early. The more I think about it, it causes me some concern for the people in that area.
I've talked to them, and yeah, they're not thrilled about it. But in the prices, we were talking about the soundproof barrier fencing and trying to just figure something out. And the biggest angle of this was if this was a decision that was feasible for $1 million less, then it would be really something to look at. But now that we see this tonight and we see these numbers are this close, it's looking like less and less of that appealing of a scenario.
We
Well-
were looking at doing, and this is, again, this is just my concept, but we were looking at doing double fencing, so that will hopefully help with some of that, because you put the soundproof out there, and then you don't see through it, so hopefully the dogs won't, I guess they'll still hear things, but they won't see animals and stuff all the time going by. It's- Whereas right now, it's just wide open, it's just chain link fence.
And it's not possible to make our program smaller, so that building wouldn't have to be added onto, and to use that existing size and to eliminate some of the towns that we service? Is that a feasible option as well? No, we're locked into the
You-
size we have.
Well, that building, if you had all the stuff in it, it needs to have, might just do us, but it wouldn't do the additional thing, and it wouldn't reduce our need for staffing. We just would have eliminated our ability to generate any revenue
Gotcha.
to offset it.
Okay.
Anything else?
This pricing that you kind of
Yes.
quoted here, did that include doing something for
I missed
an
the
office
price.
for the highway director?
It does not. This one doesn't, no, of course,
Another added cost, right?
that's correct.
Yes.
Yep. That's right, you had mentioned that this morning, and I forgot, yep. I don't know how much it would cost to fix up an office for it in the garage there, but they need some work in there regardless. Their bathroom is nasty. I don't just mean dirty, it's old, and they need some, they need some love in there in that town garage, but,
Did you
There's a
pull this,
list that's longer than the bathroom,
yes,
so-
I know there
Yeah.
is.
did you pull that measurement out there? Cause what we looked at wasn't this big, was it?
No, this
No.
is, right here's the existing
Right.
end of the building. and
Right,
this
but we
is
talked about
double it.
needing kennels, but this would be quite a ways into
Yes.
that parking lot.
Yeah, into the run area that we were talking about.
That's 10
Yeah.
feet, and this is, I think, another 6, so 16 feet off the building.
Hmm.
I don't know if 10 foot is a good run, or if they could be shorter than that. I was just thinking dogs need to run a little,
Sure.
but I don't, like I said, I'm not an expert on any of this.
Mm.
Any other questions from the committee or others?
Luke, did you say that, I misunderstood your name, did you say that this idea here is 700 square feet smaller than what we already have?
No, smaller than what we proposed for the new building.
Okay, all right.
That one was 25, or just under 2,500 square feet, and this one is like 1,750 or something like that. Well, you could do the math, it's 24 by 64. Somebody grab their phone and tell us.
So, I guess we gotta get on this, on whether it's here behind the town garage or behind the transfer station. Cause we gotta get a plan going. Cause this will be year 4, 3.
Has it been that long?
Year
No,
3 that
Post-COVID, wasn't it?
it's year 3 that we've been talking about this.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but yeah, geez, I thought the first time we talked about animal shelter was pre-COVID, but.
So for $130,000 more, you gain an additional 700 square feet with new construction compared to the scenario that we've run here.
And more
And
space.
And
More space further away from the road.
So,
Could that design be lessened, you know, can we get a smaller footprint out of that other design and try
I
to
think
get the
I've
number
proven
in?
that.
If that other footprint was the same size as this footprint, it would reduce, I don't remember
What do we
how
have,
many hundred.
600 a square
It was
foot?
$625 a square foot, and so if you reduce that by 700 square feet, that's $420,000, right?
Yeah, but it can't be right, because the
That
whole thing
can't
was
be.
only 650.
No,
So-
that's
Mm.
no. It wasn't 650, it was higher than that, I thought.
Hold on. Well, I was guessing 700 once we put in the septic and whatever else came up, but this is the new one right
It
here.
was 6 something.
So, let's see if I can get that down. 629, and then, that doesn't include, of course, the other one didn't either, could include the septic and all that stuff.
Did this one
So-
include that fencing and all that stuff?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Hoover
it
fence.
should be listed there somewhere.
Right there,
Okay, you see it. Oh, yeah,
Hoover fence.
500 feet of that, and, yeah. So,
I mean, I would prefer behind the town garage than to keep going behind the transfer station.
yeah.
For a number, you know, for the reasons we talked about, being able to get at it, you know, there's a possibility of a dog park, there's open space there.
Isn't that where Mike's gonna have a subdivision that he was talking about being,
It's
Further.
gonna be further
yeah.
than Chris Dunbar's.
This is saying it's 280 square foot, so 280 times 700.
what did we say that was $625 a square foot?
it's 196,000.
Probably
Wasn't that
that
the
very
first-
first quote, I'm not gonna
first
name the
proposal?
company, but yeah,
Okay.
the one that was 1.99 million.
So you're talking directly behind the town garage and that open
That's
space.
196,000.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had the fencing,
That
it'd
gets
So,
it
be a
down.
lot easier
so
on the
new
neighbors.
construction in this
Than this would be.
footprint,
Mhm.
Yeah. Now, some of those costs are probably hard costs that you can't take out by the square foot, you know, some
Right.
things you just have to,
A bathroom or.
yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
right?
Regardless of the size, so, but some of it, yes, definitely that would come down. So,
What is she using for water source now?
There's a well back there, but there was an old, there's a landfill.
Right,
Can't
and
remember.
she's currently using that?
No, I don't believe she uses that. When we asked Allison, I don't think they were using,
Director Gagan, do
Water
you have an
back
answer
there.
for that?
Just for cleaning. right?
Cleaning only,
Bringing water in,
That's it.
yeah.
Cleaning the runs.
So she's hauling water in probably, yeah,
With no bathroom,
yeah.
no office, no,
no
No.
sun in the winter.
nothing.
I'm trying to remember, how far down behind the town garage were we talking about? The new,
Grab that.
because I'll tell you why I'm asking the question, is I have the same concern with plows and whomever going in and out of there in the middle of the night. I know it's on the other side of the building, but still, plow trucks aren't known for their silence. And the garage, the bay doors open on both sides.
What is it? That's Mike, so it must be right here.
Jay, could we impose a quiet time?
Dictate when the snow comes.
Just have to control when it snows, right?
Exactly, yeah.
I try to schedule it now.
There's the municipal garage right there.
Right there, yeah.
There we go. So, I was envisioning, I don't know if y'all can see this, but I was envisioning somewhere right in here with the, so we keep the tree buffer. And, cause Mike was thinking he might wanna put houses fairly close to that property line down there, so I don't wanna put it right next to where he wants the houses to have the view of the field, and even though, you know, so I wanna work with him there. So I was thinking in this area here and up against the trees. Chris Dunbar's got a beautiful view out of his house, looking down through the field, and if we're over here, that won't mess him up either, so. Cause he was asking me if I said, am I gonna be looking right at this? I said, no, not if we put it over here by the tree line.
I like that idea.
Seems fairly, okay.
And that's in like the work area on the back side of the town garage, that'd be easy to plow to and access for the public too, right? Is that the
Yeah.
case?
You could just use one of the trucks you use in town, right, and just go down to that road and sand it, and she wouldn't have to deal with the gate all the time anymore. And there's always people there, so,
Well, don't we plow right down to the trail system usually anyway?
we do, but you don't sand and
It's
salt
not,
it and
it's
stuff,
not
right?
immediately after a storm.
When you get to it.
Get to it, but yeah, we
Yeah.
do.
Well, and if we ever get the snow, part of the deal we had with the snowmobile club with that new grooming equipment was they were gonna groom the Silver Lake trails just like they were gonna groom the Miles Lane trails. So,
Yep.
you know, someday, it doesn't need to be part of this project, we got enough on our plate, but someday if we wanted to do a dog park, you could put it in this field down here below the animal shelter, and they could use it for exercising dogs, or the public could use it.
So could we use your 700 square foot smaller building design for
Pretty
that?
much, but if I had my option, I'd make it a little bit wider than 24, I'd bump it out to like 30, so that those rooms aren't so, 9 feet's pretty narrow. But I could definitely make it smaller than
Well,
what it was.
if you could maybe rework that, and
For sure.
we could take a look at
Yep.
that location.
Yep.
We can,
That-
we can
Yeah.
do this all over again with that location and the smaller footprint.
And then we could build a
That sound good?
fundraising team, call Melissa and get going. Let's do this.
Yes.
Well, once we settle on a plan, then we need to get somebody to do drawings. I had talked to Jack about it last year, don't know what his schedule's like, whether he's able to do that, but, hoping somebody can just bang out something that's not too radical, but enough for the fire marshal to be happy.
Is that the pleasure of the committee to make that recommendation?
Yep.
Yeah.
Motion?
Make a motion to
Second.
make the recommendation.
All right, all those in favor of recommending behind the town garage at a smaller footprint? Opposed? Okay, next item is skate park.
You all have copies of the email that the skate park group had sent to me with questions after the Andy Wentworth tournament this year, which had a number of issues, mostly that reflect that when we did this a year ago, we should have been more specific about boundaries and authorities and communication structures and all sorts of things that we didn't really set up closely that time. But it also was an opportunity to talk about, they have plans and a grant for a permanent concrete park, and to ensure that, to discuss whether this location, given the competing uses of the site, which is an MOU with the school for the use of the baseball field and concession area next to it, and if these uses can coexist compatibly and allow the skate park to always be available, even during baseball games and those kind of things. And the skate group is here. We have incoming superintendent with us this evening. Mr. Boothby was not able to be with us tonight to sort of have a discussion about the competing uses at the site and sort of who's on first in terms of hierarchy for the use of the space and who has authority over what. And as I said, the skate group is here to discuss their questions, concerns,
You can move that.
all of the above. I think I've
Hi.
outlined it fairly accurately.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm Derek Cole with Skate Bucksport. I'm joined by Maggie Wentworth, Jamie Grindle, Mike and Tricia Caro, also of the committee. I didn't really know what I was coming into for a discussion or a conversation, so my habit is to do a ton of homework. So I'm gonna drop some documents down, and they were actually more for me, but I did all of this research so I could answer kind of any question about the skate park. So I'd like to submit these for the record, but by no means do I expect you guys to read them right now in this meeting. Is that fair to do?
Yeah, it's reasonable.
Okay, cool. I didn't print out enough either, so. So it's a stack of 3 documents. I'm assuming you two can share. And again, I don't expect you guys to read them all right now, but I just needed to do the homework in case there were any questions. Ultimately, I think to sum it up, we went through quite the process to get a skate park approved here in town. I think it's safe to say we had pretty much overwhelming support to start the project, and you know, we did come to the town using the phrase beta test, which I have to give Ms. Lassard the credit for using that term for this project. We expected to have this conversation, and we're glad this conversation's occurring because we're growing. What we didn't expect was for this minor issue of usage. And again, I'm not sure how you put it. You're gonna put it better than I did, but just kind of who has the priority in that space. So if you do actually want to reference something, the blue paperclip, the back page, this is the proposal that we actually submitted to the town council. I think it was used a couple of times at a number of the beginning meetings. I have a timeline of events, but I'm not going to get into dates unless we need to. But ultimately, you'll see that we very clearly sketched out and did, I'm going to say approximate, but pretty close to exact measurements of the pavement pad that we had intended to use for smaller ramps. And we actually also received approval to put the larger mini ramp or half pipe on the grass, which currently we did not do that. That was going to require a lot of work that we weren't looking to get into right now. So, you know, we are well within our space, and you can see our park does not really impede the use of any other facilities. We're not in the playground, we're not on home base. And additionally, you know, when we do have events, which we are gonna have one on May 24th, a pretty big fundraiser, if we do anticipate noise or maybe having to set up like a shelter to grill some food outside of that perimeter, first thing I do is I talk to the town. Usually Rich is a victim of my text messages, just saying, hey, do we need a permit for this? And usually the answer is, no, it's within the skate park and you're the skate park committee, we're good. Just trying to be respectful of the town and also the other facilities to make sure that we're not getting in the way of anything else that's going on. Saturday, April 13th, the baseball tournament that was occurring, I actually was loading up the car. Maggie and I were loading up the car with our kids to go for a hike. We saw a bunch of traffic and we said, oh, it must be the tournament, great. And Maggie gets so annoyed with me. Every time we go somewhere, I drive past the skate park now, even if we don't need to. And I drove up excited just to see how the two spaces were going to coexist. What I encountered was, which there is a letter, you guys may have already seen that I included pictures, was a bunch of tables set up dangerously close to a mini ramp, the half pipe, where kids were skating. Got to be honest with you, a kid falls, the board flies up, that goes off the ramp. That's going to hit one of them in the head, going to hit one of them in the ankles. Not where I would set up a table, also within the space. Additionally, the ramps were just moved aside. I do want to say I did not witness it, so I can't prove anything, but when we move some of those smaller ramps, there's handles cut out. We pick them up carefully, we set them down, because dragging that plywood on the ground causes chipping of the plywood, which there's pictures of. And there's also photos of people sitting on the ramps. it was just extremely disheartening to a number of us to see all of that hard work that we put into this project to just be pushed aside with zero communication from anybody involved in coordinating that event. But at the same time, I have to be completely clear, we expected this stuff to come up. This is a beta test, we expected conversations. I'm glad that we're having the conversation right now, but I am sorry that the tournament is what caused the conversation. We're not a bunch of jerks in the committee, you know? If you guys have any questions for me, I've done a ton of homework and I'm willing to stand up here and answer. I just don't know how we want the conversation to flow at this point.
What do you want? What do you guys want?
What do we want?
Yeah.
So the letter that we sent to Sue or to the town just did in bold give some bullets of issues that this kind of brought up. Today, when I was doing my homework, I did kind of look into those and maybe rephrase some of those. Sue, you did answer some of them, but it was very clear to me that the answers that you were providing really kind of all, in my opinion, led to we need to talk about this. So the blue paper clip titled Skate Bucksport's Request. Do you want me just to read through them? The committee requests that the town of Bucksport confirm and document the approved area of the skate park as outlined in our approved proposal. Again, that image that I attached, that's part of the proposal, and in the other documents I attached is the full proposal. With permission to use the grassed area we originally planned to place a large ramp on if we choose to move it there in the future. And the other piece is that the town designates the approved area for skate park or skate park related activities exclusively. We'd also like a decision that activities within the facilities adjacent to the skate park, so the playground, the parking lot, the ball field, that they don't obstruct the use of the skate park. The skate park does exist within its space, and we don't plan on putting a ramp out on the home plate. We don't plan on putting a ramp on underneath the swing set, and we'd love to have the same kind of respect there. We'd also like a commitment from the town of Bucksport that the skate park will remain open during baseball games or other athletic events. Also, that a specific area be designated for the Booster Club to set up their grills, tables, and other necessary items to support the snack shack. And we ask that when that's determined, that the safety of their volunteers and the skate park users are considered. You know, we don't want to grill, you know, like just outside of that boundary where, again, the volunteer is going to get their ankles clipped with a flying skateboard. We don't want one of our skaters to run into their hot grill. Couple more. That the town specifies that individuals or organizations requesting special use of the skate park are responsible for communication regarding such use. You know, there was some chatter outside of the town that, well, why didn't you guys even know this was happening? We didn't. No one contacted us. Also, prompt and continued conversation about a permanent location and construction of a concrete skate park, like Sue did mention. We actually received 2 grants recently, both at $10,000 each, so we're at $20,000 and a little bit of other fundraised amounts in our account with the town. So we have the funds to put a down payment down for a concrete park, and that down payment will buy us site evaluations, multiple site evaluations, and then potential design of a park. So again, I'm glad we're having this conversation. I really wish that it hadn't come up this way, as I think the whole committee does. But it's a good conversation to have, as this was a beta test, and we're looking to make this a little bit more permanent with concrete. So yeah, we're looking forward to more conversation about it, and we're ready to start approaching builders. We just kind of need to get through this issue and also talk with you all about, you know, are there like maybe a couple other potential spots where that could occur.
Derek, is the existing site you're using big enough for a concrete?
So a town with our population and also the skill level at this point of skaters, bikers, roller skaters, etc. You know, we're small, and I personally feel like we maybe don't need much more space than is there. A concrete builder could come in and easily say, no way.
Does, if you do a concrete one, does that open you up to the Tony Hawk Foundation for a grant?
Potentially it does, and that's a major grant source.
Right.
I believe it's typically like a matching grant, 50-50, but they definitely look at bigger cost, and we hope that we'll be eligible for that.
And what stage would you have to be at? Would you have to have like a site already chosen for that project, for that application?
Yeah. I mean, they don't really come into play, at least my understanding, until you've done the work that we're doing, because every kid in every town wants a skate park, right? So they've set up strict standards that you guys need to, you know, get to a certain point and then come to us. So that is where we're at, is just when we start to do this work, then we should be able to apply for grants and have that discussion with them.
And are there any timeframes on the planning grant, the 2 planning grants you got?
I believe the time frame is a year for one of them. The other, it's pretty loose.
Okay.
It's an
What's the second
unrestricted.
one?
The second one is from the Castine Universalist Unitarian Church, an endowment that they have. So that was a $10,000 grant, and the first one was Maine Community Foundation.
When was the second one received?
I believe, if I read the email correctly, it was this week that it was received.
Is it the outreach committee or the social justice one?
The social justice one, I believe.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's great.
Yeah, no, they actually, I'll just put it to you this way, they knew who we were and they reached out to us, which felt really good.
So when was the first one received? What is that, the end of the 1 year?
That was received, I don't have the date on me, but it would have been March or April.
March or?
I think April.
That's close enough.
I think we also need to look at a lot of discussions we're having, some tonight with skate park, baseball field, playground,
Yeah.
what's
they all
going
come
on
together.
potentially off of by Miles Lane. That's gonna make a major impact.
It'd make a big difference.
Could possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, as part of the playground committee, I completely hear you. There's so many moving pieces here, and there's a potential for reordering things. This goes here, that goes there, and it
No.
all, so many factors.
Not to say if you started with a concrete thing that you could build around that, it wouldn't necessarily be wasted.
Right.
That, oh, well, we're gonna expand, you could still expand.
Yeah.
Did we ever figure out who put the lock on the gate in between the playground and the skate park?
Was it like a paddle lock to prevent the fence from opening?
Yeah.
No, I didn't really know that was even a question. The only thing we had was we had a little like real estate like lock box with a key for the ramp storage, but that was elsewhere and wasn't impeding the opening of the gate.
Okay.
I do think there's gotta be much better communication in the interim while everyone needs to coexist of the.
Everything from the way you use the batting cages on down, Rich mentioned, you know, depending on, there was a discussion on when the batting cages were being used, whether they were hitting one way or the other. Was it you I had the conversation
Yeah, you
with
wanna
Rich?
hit towards the superintendent's office and not towards the half pipe. So,
Right.
Yeah, just switch it, just have the players in the cage switch directions. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Just in case. Yeah.
Because those, that, you know, but that kind of conversation, that's a coexistence conversation, so that they're not
Yeah.
batting in the other direction.
But like the moving of the ramps, that shouldn't have happened.
There should have been a whole conversation before
Yeah.
any of that, but we didn't have any kind of phone tree set up about who's in charge of the skate park, who's you know, with the school, which we also have an MOU with. They didn't have that information. That's our,
I mean, respectfully, I actually know the organizers of the tournament pretty well. And we weren't contacted, for what that's worth.
Mind if I-
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like most things, it just seems like this is boiled down to communication.
Totally.
And the communication that happened after on various avenues, and I'll stay out of it, except to say there was, didn't do anyone any favors. I think the communication after on social media, if I'm being specific, made both groups look rather juvenile. So, and I'll leave it at that. But what I will say is that I know what the tournament, the Wentworth tournament is trying to accomplish, and I know the amount of hard work that Skate Bucksport has put in to having a decent skate park, and so that stuff shouldn't have been moved, and it shouldn't have. But if I get off my communication piece, except to say that a year from now, we have plenty of time to make sure that that tournament happens and there aren't any issues. And please don't feel like I'm picking on you, Derek. I know isn't anyone here from the other group, and I'm not picking on you specifically or your group specifically on any level. Again, I think you folks have done a really good job with some of the stuff that you've done. I would hate to see that be undermined by some of the stuff that I was made aware of after, and I felt like I needed to say that out loud. But again, let's really just get to the bottom of putting together a plan so that moving forward, when these types of events are going to happen, and it doesn't sound like there are many, but the potential is there where it could. Let's make sure that that the ducks are in a row. And
The non-impeding, if you're having events at the skate park, they're not gonna be entirely within the confines of the skate park if you have a large attendance.
Yep.
Is that,
Yeah, and you know,
that will impact other uses at the facility overall as well. So that if you're asking for nobody beyond the area that's identified, there will be those who say, then when you're having your activity, keep it on your, what I would like to avoid is that
Yeah.
nobody can ever step on anybody else's space, because if they do, then nobody's gonna be doing anything at that site.
I mean, honestly, we always do our best. I think we do a good job of having that communication with the right people. When we were planning our May 24th fundraiser, I called the RSU and said, "Hey, is there a baseball game going on?" "No." "Oh, hey, well, we're gonna be having an event here. Can you put
That's
that on your
fair.
calendar?"
Yep.
Of course. That's what needs to happen. We have a very big social media presence. Plus, let's not forget, it's a town park.
Yep.
Who do you call when you need to use a town park? I think we all know the answer to that.
Yep.
So I feel like communication definitely needs to happen. You're right.
We need to find out who owns the lock that's on that gate so that can be open so people with wheelchairs that are in there with their grandkids can get back in there.
I didn't realize, I figured that was just like the
I love
actions of the town or something.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Steve, what gate are you talking about?
The one that's right parallel to the skate park. There's a bifold gate that's part of the fence line that's parallel to the skate park that's now got a like a chain and a lock on it to keep it closed.
Always has had a chain and a lock on it, if it's a master lock.
Not to the phone call I got. They were using it up until just recently so they could get some grandparents were getting in there with their grandkids, and then it got closed. and
We're having
locked.
an ADA discussion, which is also going to impact the site, because currently there are no ADA parking. There are currently no ADA parking spaces, and there's 42 spots at the playground, skate park, baseball complex. I met with Matt yesterday. We actually had this discussion back in February. If you can picture, the 63 Elm Street, Luke? Right there. All right, can everybody see this right here, where the lines are?
Yep.
This space right here is going to be a handicap van accessible space. The space next to it is going to be a handicap space. We require, because we have more than 24 parking spaces, to provide 2 handicap spots, one of which should be ramp accessible and van accessible. And what we did is, since the lines are already there, that makes sense. We do need to make a path to the gate that you are referencing so that And I think it may be worn down enough that an ADA wheelchair stroller can get in there. There's other things we have to do there. We can't put handicap in the middle because that needs to be repaired. It's dropped off so bad. So the current plan is to come here, and Derek, I apologize, is the grassy area you're referring to this grassy area or this grassy area?
Well, so, this right here, from like the snack shack,
Yeah,
like over, but there was gonna be space for the gate to still be used, the snack shack to still have, you know, some breathing room, was, approved for a 16-foot by something ramp. And then the line that we sketched out is virtually from like the center of the snack shack building here to where the curb ends right here. That was the approved area.
so realistically, the only change that potentially is gonna happen to provide ADA access as the playground area gets worked out, the curbing gets replaced, because right now, the entryway's here, the curbing is gone, and we have a drop about yay big, and each year Jay's crew comes over and fills in said gap, but we need to put the curbing back, have it drained off. So the most sense is 2 handicap spots here for anyone to utilize any 3. It's the shortest distance to each location, and this is already blocked off anyway. So has that been painted and signed? Matt went yesterday to get signs. I haven't had a chance to go up to the ball field yet.
I don't think so.
Okay. So those will be the 2 spots, and then there will be ADA. So I don't know how that's going to conflict, but at least we're gonna get ourselves in compliance for ADA issues here.
So it sounds like the time frame on that is fairly quick.
This is happening. Those 2 spots will be painted off. If they're not done yet, they're done.
There wasn't,
Oh, okay.
there yesterday.
All right.
After I left, there was another curve.
So we're
And they
talking
already be done.
a week.
Probably the entryway to get over there will probably be about a week.
Okay. All right.
Yes. So currently what happens is I field the phone calls from Joe Q Public if there's something wrong. Vandalism at either the playground, porta potties, skate park, but not the baseball field, unless it's the dugouts.
Okay.
Okay, so, porta potties, we have cameras.
Mhm.
And I've spoken to public safety, and people are getting, instead of finding them, they're getting notices, don't come back. So that's one way to cut down on it. It's about $800 worth of damage to porta potties, and it may not seem like a lot to some people, but we rent those, they're not ours, and I really don't like scrubbing them, so, the playground, it's 21 plus years old, so it's going to have damage. The skate park, I went 7 o'clock the next morning because of the original post on Skate Bucksport, to take photos of the mud and the damage, which I have all of that as well. And then the baseball field, I was there when whoever decided to jump off the fence and break picnic tables, takes in the blocks, throw them throughout the skate park onto the ball field. What happens is we start getting liability issues if RSU is unable to mow the field that day because it's not quite ready to be mowed and someone falls on said cinder block. So all cinder blocks and everything have been removed. I don't know who the owners were. We did not haul off the crates, the pallets, because I didn't know whose they were, and I didn't think it was right to haul those off because those were being used for something else. So right now, I'm personally handling all inquiries. It doesn't need to be me, but as of right now, just to try to make sure that everything's going right, and trying to keep the peace. Everyone seems to have a plan. I've seen the AD, we've talked, I talked to Derek, we've talked, so I don't know who the town would like to put with that, but it definitely should be at least someone who's gonna watch over all of it.
Thanks, Rich. Pleasure of the committee.
How do we word this?
Table it pending the next meeting and you'll have to-
There's no action to be taken right now, I don't think, other than we can't back off this. This has to keep moving forward.
And the playground will as well.
Indefinitely, the communication needs to happen.
I think that you're your next meeting may inform more of this meeting and in terms of long-term stuff.
Yep.
But the committee has requested a number of things from the council, they want the council to agree to, and I think that maybe, you know, agendaing those for the council to make a decision on if all of those are okay, if some of them, if there's a modification or whatever, that I believe that the committee's asking for those specific items to be agreed to at some point.
We're in no rush. The skate park's there and we're having a good time. So whatever you all need to do, I don't think this is gonna happen again. And again, I wanna be very clear, our social media post was not meant to hurt anyone's feelings. In fact, we congratulated all the athletes. That wasn't sarcasm. What continued, and maybe what you're referencing, Paul, is the chatter and the comments within. We're in no rush. We're not upset with our neighbors. Whatever you all need to do, this might take some time, and that's okay.
Because I think it would be better overall if, like, this next committee meeting, the baseball field committee is very relevant to this.
And we're presently having well, you're on the playground committees, and, you know, that may be a shortened footprint too, so that comes into the equation. as
I
well,
mean,
if we talk
if-
about
I don't think
smaller.
it's gonna drag on.
No.
This is gonna be, we're not gonna kick the can.
There you go.
I mean, if you wanna call it kicking the can, I'm okay with that, because we're talking about a bunch of committees that, I mean, maybe we all need to get together and have a big old planning session that isn't, I don't know.
No,
I'm new
these-
to committees in the town, but
These
there's a
are
lot
all
of people.
things that are on my, you know, right in front of me.
Yep.
They're not way down the road. It needs to happen.
Right.
I think we're gonna have some things that are gonna drive us towards a course of
Right.
action, and I think then what you just referenced, Eric, or whatever the case may be, as long as we have a plan for that with a timeline attached, I
Yeah.
think would be more than sufficient.
Thank you, guys.
So, I,
To mention as well, I feel like corresponding with all this together, cause I
Right.
visited I have to go there.
Yeah, sorry.
Please.
Public vision.
Just like to correspond, all of them not have like a turf war with something that, if we're going concrete, we do concrete pads for like concrete picnic tables, things like that to kind of blend it in all together. I think was something to think about too.
Yep.
You know.
I agree. Thank you.
so I would say we don't put it to council tonight. We regroup after
Few more
hearing all these other meetings and,
So the next item.
but I guess we could recommend to council that we need to make sure the communication happens between all the groups.
And that you include in your planning or whatever, the items that have been, you know, in the long term that the
Yeah.
skate park is looking for.
Superintendent Tripp has a comment.
Yeah, and I know, Derek, that our athletic director and Mrs. Scott have already contacted you to make sure that communication is happening. So I just wanna make sure that we've already started that process, and we don't wanna see any of that stuff happen either, but we have just a few games left in the interim, so we've already started that conversation with them,
Exactly.
so.
In fact, I owe them an apology because I was waiting to have this discussion before, like, kind of talking to them, because I don't have any authority. You know?
But that communication is pushing,
Yep.
that's what we should have.
Right.
It is.
Motion adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.